Why do I feel like I need my husband's permission, my best friend's permission, society's permission, somebody else who's sober's permission? Why do I feel like I haven't qualified when it has wrecked my mental health and taken so much energy? And I have seen the destruction that it causes. Not only have I seen it in my life, but with, growing up with my dad, but it's everywhere.
Well, hello there, and welcome to this episode of the Terri Cole Show. That I want to start with a question. Do you ever wake up at 4 a.m, like diving into a shame spiral about how much you drank or what you said to someone? Do you have one night of drinking too much and then feel hungover for like 3 days, which didn't used to be the case when you were younger? Are you sort of privately worried about the amount of alcohol you consume, but you don't say anything about it to the people in your life? Anyway, if any of that resonates with you, I think you're going to love today's interview with Suzanne Warye, who is a sobriety influencer. She has a popular podcast called The Sober Mom Life. And what we're actually talking about is her brand new book, which just dropped, called The Sober Shift, a modern day guide to living an abundant, sober life. And this was such a great interview. And I feel like her story in some ways, and listen, I'm in recovery too, so I've got my own story, but just what happens in life. Sometimes life gets away from us. And what is on the other side of sobriety? Even if you're just maybe a little bit sober curious, her story is phenomenal, whether you're sober curious or not. So I hope that you enjoyed this interview with Suzanne as much as I enjoyed interviewing her. Well, hello there. I'm super excited, you guys, to welcome Suzanne Warye to the Terri Cole Show. Suzanne, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so pumped to meet you, about your new book, about all the things. We have so many things in common. Before we get into the book, which is called The Journey to Sobriety. Is that what it's called?
It's called The Sober Shift.
Sober Shift. Okay. Tell me more. What's the subtitle?
It's a modern day guide to living an abundant, sober life.
I love it.
Yeah.
All
yeah.
right.
What the book does is really, the first half of the book, we burn down what we've thought about alcohol and all of the lies we've been told. And then the second half, I really like, that's the building, and the brighter side of sobriety. That's where we build the foundation. Each chapter is a shift from the old way of thinking about sobriety and alcohol, like missing out, anonymous, day one, starting over, all of these things that we've been taught that alcohol is a privilege and sobriety is a punishment. And then we shift. I say we, it's like the collective we. It's just me.
Yeah.
I wrote the book. And then each chapter is just a shift to a new way to think about it. And so instead of the fear of missing out, it's the gift of being fully present and how we can do that in sobriety. And instead of anonymous, it's proudly sober. And so it's really kind of tearing down everything you thought you knew about alcohol first and then sobriety.
All right. So love it. I've got my own sobriety journey. I know you've got yours. So tell us a little bit, if you would. If you were a Marvel movie character, they all have origin stories, right?
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yes. Why?
I don't know Marvel. Okay. I mean, I know. Okay.
Well, your origin story. There's something that happened in your life that got you to become a sober influencer, an author, writing this particular book at this particular time in your life. So lead us up to what brought you here.
Yeah. Man, I mean, how long do we have? Because there's so much. As with everything, I think, I have to go all the way back. I won't bore you with a whole lot of that story, but my parents got divorced when I was little. And of course that informed my view of the world. My dad then turned to alcohol to kind of numb and escape his pain. And I was witness to that, and I really saw what alcohol did to him. I didn't know exactly what, right? But I saw how. I saw how he changed and really felt unsafe. I write about that in the book. He actually quit drinking when the doctor told him that if he wanted to dance at my wedding, he had to quit drinking today, and he did. And I was 10, right? I wasn't anywhere close to getting married. And and he did quit, but there was no follow-up conversation. There was no, hey, this is what you saw and this is how you felt, and let's talk about that. It was kind of, Dad was a party guy and then he wasn't, right? And so I leaned into that party girl persona as I grew up. In high school a little bit, but mostly in college and in my 20s, I was a party girl, and I did love parts of it. I still look back and I can remember kind of the feeling, the power that went into being a party girl. I liked that. But then, of course, the shame that alcohol brought, I felt that deeply. And, whether it was blacking out or waking up in someone's bed and I was like, you are a stranger. Who are you? The walk of shame, right? Such an interesting term reserved solely for women.
Yeah.
And the men are just free of the shame then, I guess.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. And so, I've always hated my relationship with alcohol. But once I turned 30, I met my husband. We got married. I had my first baby at 34. And it was really a decision of, I am going to drink like an adult. I am going to no longer, my party girl days are over. Obviously, that chapter is closed, and that will be replaced with, fancy red wine and maybe Napa. And, now we're going to do it. We're going to do it an adult way. And, the interesting thing is that alcohol is alcohol, no matter if it's Goldschlager or red wine, right? It doesn't matter if it's organic. It doesn't matter what the label is. I write in the book a lot about what kind of led me to my last day of drinking in January 19th, 2020. And I was very good at moderating. I have a lot of willpower just as a person. And that's what moderation takes, right? It takes willpower. The problem is, like, when there's a highly addictive substance involved, willpower will run out eventually. You don't know when, and you don't know how. And that's that question mark. And that question mark used to be fun. That used to, like, the question mark that alcohol brought in my 20s was like, great. What is the night going to bring? Like, this is great. The question mark, though, in my 30s then posed a real threat and could take everything, right?
Yeah.
And so I wasn't sober curious leading up to quitting. I had done maybe like a dry January or a sober October, but always with the goal of counting down to when I, quote unquote, could drink again, right? Like that I had lost the privilege and I want to get back to it.
Yep.
And that all changed. On January 19th, 2020, I woke up and I had nursed my baby, my 3-month-old baby. He was my third, in a blackout. And man, I hadn't blacked out for 5 years, right? I had really like nailed moderation. And then this happened. And it was that moment, people call it the click, people call it whatever that moment of like intense clarity is.
Yeah.
It was that moment, and I told my husband I'm done. Like, I spoke it into existence. And as I was speaking it, my brain was like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, what is this? You're not, what does that mean, right? You're an alcoholic. You have to go to AA. What does this mean? And so I really just spent like the next year really going on a quest to make sure that I had just told the truth, that I was done. And like I was going to figure out not only what alcohol was, because I didn't know, but how I had used it in my life to cope and escape and numb and conform and belong in all of the ways that we're told that it'll help us, but are actually lies.
Wow, amazing.
That was a lot. I don't know what Marvel character that makes me, but that was a lot. Well, that makes me the talkative Marvel character.
I love it. I really identify with so much of it, though, because the whole thing of, like you said, not being sober curious, really, for me, it came down to having a therapist who was like, P.S. you're an alcoholic.
Mm.
And I was like, what are you talking about? And looking at life. So for you, how was it when you became newly sober, even though you had sort of mastered, we can master moderation, right? Until we can't, right?
Mm.
That's
Yes,
it. Like
that's
it
the
works until
thing.
it doesn't. And then for
Yes.
most people, if you really have this gene, it eventually doesn't, even when you are very good at controlling things and very disciplined.
Yeah, because it's an uncontrollable substance too, right? It's alcohol is a very highly addictive substance, and
Yep.
moderation is hard,
Yep.
not because it doesn't work, but because it works, right? The
Right.
times that it works, you're lulled into this false sense of security, like, you know what? I'm nailing this. Like, I
Yep.
am nailing this drinking thing. I'm drinking my water in between. I'm eating bread. I'm stopping at 2 and I'm feeling great. The thing about that, too, though, even when I would stop at 2, I still felt shame. Like, shame just still came. Even it took so much from me. It took mental energy. It just took so much.
Yep.
Yeah. And so, wait, what was your question?
We were just talking about, like, actually, what I was going to go into is to just ask you, so what inspired you to write the
Yeah.
book
Yeah.
itself? Like, what inspired you to do it?
So as I was kind of going along on my very newly sober journey, I didn't go to AA. I didn't have meetings, right? Because this was 5 years ago, and there are many sober communities now. There weren't that many then, other than
Yeah.
AA, right?
Yep.
And so I really just spent those, and remember, like January 2020, it's right before the pandemic. So
Yep.
I had a 5 year old, a 2.5 year old, and a 3 month old. And so I was just kind of in it. I was at home. I was in my sweatpants, making sure that just the kids were alive. Like, alive was the goal, not
Yep.
thriving, because, like, what, how, right? Just,
Yeah.
are they
Nobody was.
okay? Yeah, nobody was. And I had one AirPod in and I was listening to Quit Lit. I was listening to as many Quit Lit books that I could get my hands on. And I was devouring them, and it's the This Naked Mind and the We Are the Luckiest, Quit Like a Woman, the Unexpected Joy of Being Sober. I
So
just,
Quit Lit is
yes,
literature about getting sober.
yes, exactly.
Okay. Wow.
And
I
so
never even heard of it.
yes, and I exhausted the Quit Lit written by women. And there was one thing that just in pretty much every book, it was that they had very clearly lost something from the outside that people could point to, whether it was a DUI, whether it was, it just felt like there was this rock bottom moment. And I didn't feel, I felt like anytime I told people in my life that I was going to quit, they were like, why?
So
But you're not, quote unquote, that bad. And I was like, so it was there wasn't an intervention. There was never talk about my drinking. It was just not a quote unquote problem,
yep.
but it was all inside. We're very, very practiced in hiding our feelings about our drinking and our
Yeah.
doubts and our fears, right? Because, like, we're not going to open up about that because we're going to be judged. We're going to be told, you have to go to AA, you have to quit, you have to
Yep.
do this. This is what's wrong with you, right? And so I just felt this, it was just this corrosive thing, and I call it like mold in the basement. That's really what it felt like. My entire drinking career, the stories that I wasn't ready to tell, even to myself, about what had happened when I invited alcohol in. It was just mold in the basement. And maybe everyone around me was okay with my drinking, but I wasn't. And
Right.
I wanted something to be able to say, like, no, you qualify to quit drinking. You don't have to wait. And
Right.
that book wasn't out there. And so then as I'm like going through my sobriety and really like taking on these questions of like, wait, why do I feel like I need my husband's permission? my best friend's permission, society's permission, somebody else who's sober's permission. Why do I feel like I haven't qualified when it has wrecked my mental health and taken so much energy? And I have seen the destruction that it causes. Not only have I seen it in my life, but with, growing up with my dad, but it's everywhere. It's everywhere, the destruction that alcohol causes. And so then I just had all of these questions, like maybe we do have this all wrong, right? Maybe waiting until we're forced to quit, maybe then sobriety does feel like a punishment. But maybe if we get off the train before that, if we really are able to say, like, actually, I have outgrown this thing, this substance that has been with me since I'm 16 years old, it's not doing the same thing that it did to me then. I don't need it like I did then. And it's actually threatening everything that I love in my life. Like, maybe that's enough. And so I started like talking about it on my Instagram. I have the Sober Mom Life podcast. I started kind of playing around with this, like, hey guys, what if, we don't wait? And just the response that I kept hearing from women saying, oh my God, me too. Like, I hate moderation, even though I look like I'm nailing it. And so then that really like drove me to be like, okay, I think that this is needed. This conversation of just like, we can outgrow alcohol. I think that's what's missing. And it was a hard sell at first though. Like, this book, it wasn't, because people didn't get it at first. Agents were like, yeah, but there's no sensational stories really sell books. And this is more of that like middle ground, right? And so they didn't get it. Thankfully, my agent Colleen was like, okay, I'm going to take a chance on you, right? And so, and we heard no a lot. We heard no, the quit lit space is saturated. No, this isn't needed. And I'm like sitting there being like, I know it is, because I was a consumer of this, right? Like, I know it's needed. And so then, we just continued to fight. And then, I found my home at Harper One, and I'm just thrilled that it's going to be, that it's out in the world, and that someone like me, who I really was convinced it was like user error. I thought there was just something wrong with me, and that everyone else had it figured out. And if one woman like me reads it and sees herself, that's it. Like, that's all I need. Just like to know she's not alone in this.
So it's almost like the mommy wine culture. Let's talk a little bit about this.
Yes.
Because I almost feel like this is the next natural step for a lot of the mommy wine culture folks, is really looking at this. And this book is an invitation to look at it.
Yeah, that's perfectly put. It is an invitation. And I'm a mom, and so I talk to moms, and while this book is for anybody, it is for moms, because moms are targeted now more than ever. Our drinking went up an insane amount in COVID, not because we don't care, not because we're quote unquote alcoholics, but because we care so damn much and we need help. And alcohol has been pushed as this savior and this hero, without knowing. I think most people don't know the machine that is behind it, and the brilliant marketing that is behind alcohol in the pink labels and the flowers on the label. That's not an accident. There, it's just like how Jack Daniel's is like tough and manly. And, something with a pink label is going to be just not as dangerous. And that's just not true.
Right.
Big alcohol needs women to drink more. They need moms to drink more. And they don't just need us to drink more. They need us addicted. And, there's just it's such a travesty, because we need moms to be okay. We need moms as a society to be okay. And there are systemic things that are way bigger than this. but we can't even start to have the conversation if what we are turning to will not only get us addicted but destroy everything that we love and care for. Like that is, yeah. And so I think just opening women's eyes and moms' eyes to the fact that you're being targeted, and in a really, I think they've discounted us. I think that they've thought like we'll just kind of fall in hook, line, and sinker. And I don't think they realize like what happens when you mess with moms.
I don't think they care. Like they'll
Yeah.
they'll realize when
I
people
think
when moms
I
get sober, right? Then
yeah, I
they'll
think
care
they'll
because they're
care.
talking.
Yes. Exactly. I think they'll care when we stop buying their product. I mean, that's
Yes.
what, and that's yeah. I think you're right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit. In the book, you also talk about the neuroscience of alcohol-free living. So
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about mental health and brain research that,
Yeah.
yeah, like what
I'm
sobriety does to this big fat brain.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's crazy. It's funny. If anybody listens to my podcast and you're listening to this, you might be laughing right now because I am not the science person. I am like the touchy-feely, let's talk about emotions, but like I am not the science person. So I had to do so much research for this book, and I turned to my friend Jill of Sober Powered to really break down what is alcohol doing to our mental health and our brains. Not only does alcohol change our brains the minute it hits it, right? And this is going back to moderation, the rules that we make to moderate and to say like, okay, I'm going to drink water in between, or I'm just having two. Those rules that we make with a sober brain, that our brain is not the same when alcohol's involved, right? As soon as we have that first drink, I mean, our impulse control goes down, our decision making. You can see all of these, like the slurred speech, the stumbling, the repeating, the getting louder. This is all a product of alcohol on our brain. Not only that, but when you talk about mental health, and this is it's near and dear to my heart. I have OCD. And, with that comes anxiety. And to think that we have been sold this lie that something that wreaks havoc on our mental health, spikes our anxiety, our cortisol, messes with our dopamine and our serotonin, even when we're not drinking it, to think that we've been sold that this will help us relax and help us sleep. And there couldn't be a bigger lie. And especially with, how much we struggle with mental health. If you have anxiety, if you have depression, alcohol is interesting because it's a depressant that acts like a stimulant. And so it's horrible for anyone with anxiety or depression, any sort of mental health. It's going to make it so much harder. Not only then you'll be addicted. So it's yes, alcohol and mental health they shouldn't be in the same sentence. And, this also, I go into this about alcohol in wellness spaces. We see alcohol at the end of races and alcohol with yoga and in the spa. I mean, it would be no crazier than like handing someone a cigarette after they ran a race. Like, congrats, smoke this, right? That's like,
And nobody would do that though.
no.
Dr.
Yes.
Daniel Amen. Do you know Dr.
Yeah.
Amen?
Yeah.
So he's a friend. He's great. And I love his, I actually went on his show to have my brain scanned, and he's got a Instagram
A dream.
show.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
it was wild.
Yeah.
But what he talks about, and I'm so grateful I stopped drinking when I did in 1987, literally.
That's amazing.
I was like a babe. I mean, except for those 2 long weeks in '08, because I just wanted to make sure I couldn't drink, and the answer is
Yeah.
yes, you definitely cannot.
Yeah.
Anyway, Daniel, the way that he talks about it, he's like, listen, he doesn't think that anyone should be smoking weed or drinking or doing illicit drugs. And he has the biggest collection of brain scans in the world in one place. I think it's 280,000 brain scans or something really insane.
Yeah.
And he does all this comparison. And he's like, I'm not making this so. This is so.
Yeah.
Because the data says it. I have no dog in the fight. I'm not trying to make you not drink or not smoke or not do anything. But I am telling you that alcohol, even in small amounts, shrinks the hippocampus of the brain.
Yes.
The
Yes.
exact opposite
Even
of
in
what we would want to happen.
yes. Even in small amounts. That's what I love. Historically it's been like, no, moderation, like that's the goal. Like drink responsibly, even in small amounts, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's good to know. And I see, and I wonder what you see, Suzanne. Are you seeing this shift culturally in
Yeah.
younger women and in sort of the younger generations, you know?
Yeah, I think we are definitely seeing a shift away from alcohol, whether that started with education. I was, I'm 45, and so I was in the 80s and 90s in the dare and this is your brain on drugs. Like I was very clear on like, okay, got it. I'm not going to do drugs, but alcohol, there was no conversation around that,
Nope.
right? And so now I think there is so much coming out about it. The World Health Organization saying no amount of alcohol is safe. I think our eyes are opening up to alcohol. I'm a little, anytime I'm asked this, I am a little hesitant because I see THC and gummies and weed kind of swooping in and as the kind like the alternative, right? And I think they are targeting the sober population and saying like, "Hey, you're sober, so great. Yeah, yeah, don't drink, but drink this instead because this is THC, not alcohol."
Yep.
And I think that's dangerous. I'm not gonna like say, well, alcohol does this and THC does this. It's a highly addictive psychoactive substance. And I think if our goal in sobriety, in not drinking, at least my goal is to figure out how I feel and what I need, right?
Yep.
Like kind of every day, all throughout the day, these are the questions that I'm asking myself, and that's my life's work. That then THC is not an obstacle but a barrier to that. And so I think that's tough. I think with, studies coming out saying Gen Z drinks, less than ever. I think that's great, but I think we need to look deeper into the studies because I do think they are turning to something that has been sold as not as dangerous.
Yeah, as safe, as
Yeah.
natural, quote
Yeah,
unquote, as all this
natural.
other stuff. And
Like
again, if we look at what you're saying and what Dr. Amen says,
yeah.
he's
Yeah.
like, no, because your
Right.
brain
And
scan says no. That's why.
right. And I think it's under the guise of, well, it's legal so it's fine. Alcohol is legal too. Right?
Yeah.
Alcohol is legal and it's completely very harmful and dangerous. And so just because it's legalized doesn't mean that it's safe.
Indeed. I
Yeah.
wanted to talk a little bit about, you write about diversity and sobriety challenges. So, exploring the unique barriers faced by people of color in navigating alcohol addiction and recovery. So, let's discuss this because I find this interesting.
Yeah, I had Lucy, who is my friend. She's at I think she changed her handle. I think it's Lucy MK Unbottled now. And I asked her, like, let me talk about the role of alcohol and sobriety in, populations in people of color, and how does that affect you? And she shared this beautiful passage in the book talking about the just additional hurdles that she had to cross, that it wasn't just like, okay, she's drinking. It was how she was judged for her drinking because of, being a person of color, and just the shame then, the added shame and that added layer of shame that I don't think that we talk about enough. And so I'm just so glad that she was able to share that story, because that I didn't have that, I didn't
Right.
have to deal with that.
Yeah. I think that and really it's probably very similar with the blocks, communities of color having more difficult time getting good mental health care.
Yeah.
And,
Yes.
living in these mental health deserts, basically, where,
Yes.
it's really hard. And even if you have insurance and even if, you know what I mean, it's still
Yeah.
hard to find
Yeah.
good help, but that's just makes it that much harder.
Right. It's just that much. It's just another obstacle.
Yeah.
And another obstacle and added shame, right? And so when you think about that together, it's just yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough.
So, Suze, who would you say this book is for?
This book is for anyone who has ever secretly doubted their relationship with alcohol but would never dare say that. And has always assumed that they didn't qualify for sobriety.
Yeah, I think that's so great because I think that's so many. I mean, it sounds like you were in that category. I was definitely in that category. Nobody was
Yeah.
looking at my life and saying, you're a friggin' basket case, because I wasn't. Because
Right.
being high functioning, I came from, at least my father was a very high functioning alcoholic. Never
Yeah.
missed a day of work in 30 years. Right? So what
Wow.
people don't get about addiction is that it isn't all DUIs. It isn't all losing everything, right? Which
Right.
makes it even more insidious, which is kind of what you're talking about, that
Yeah.
you qualify to read this book, to allow yourself to get into an inquiry for yourself. You don't need someone else to think that you're drinking too much.
No.
In your heart of hearts, and trust me, Suze, I know this because I knew for myself.
Yeah.
I definitely knew before my therapist confronted me
Yeah.
that the way that I drank, which was much more binge drinking and blacking out and all the things you're describing,
Yeah.
couldn't possibly be healthy. But it never entered my mind until someone else said something about it. So I feel like it's a gift. And I want to say something about this book for women also going into perimenopause and menopause, because can we talk a little bit before we go about
Oh,
that?
yes. As I'm sitting here sweating a little, like, yeah, I'm kind of entering, I think I'm entering perimenopause. I'm 45. And I can't imagine drinking through this. I can't imagine how much worse my sleep would be, my mental health, my mood swings, all of that. Like, I can't, I think alcohol is pushed as like, no, this will help you get through it. And it's like, no, I can't imagine how much worse everything would be. And things aren't bad, but I'm feeling some joint pain I've not felt before. I wake up at 4 a.m. sometimes. The good thing about waking up at 4 a.m. in sobriety versus waking up at 4 a.m. drinking, there's no shame. You know that 4 a.m., 3 a.m. wake up like shame spiral after you.
Yep.
This isn't that. There's zero shame in my 4 a.m. wake up. It's more of like a, okay, let's just try not to think about the to-do list. Don't look at my phone. Try to fall back asleep, right?
Right.
But there's no shame. There's no what is wrong with you? How could you? You're horrible. And that,
Uh-huh.
I mean, yeah.
That is super major. You guys, the book is called The Sober Shift, A Modern Day Guide to Living an Abundant, Sober Life. It just dropped. Suzanne, tell us where we can find you if people are interested.
Yes. Well, come over to Instagram. That's probably the easiest. It's Suzanne Warye. And then SuzanneWarye.com is you will see all I'm going on a little book tour. I'm going, I know. Who am I? How is this happening? I don't know. But come and see me. I'll be all over the place. Just in October, and then maybe some dates to come later. And come and listen to me at the Sober Mom Life podcast, and I talk all about this. And you have to come on there.
Yes,
We'll get
yes.
you
I
on
actually
there.
I think it's already scheduled. So I'm so
Okay,
looking
good.
forward to it. I'm
Yes.
so happy you wrote this book.
Thank
Congratulations.
you.
You guys, if you feel like this book is for you, you are correct. In the meantime, thank you so much for spending time with us today, Suze. I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much.